Hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Kubeir. This is just great. As we all know, this last week has been so interesting, so exciting. So many updates, so many changes. Most of these changes have been quite promising, quite positive. Honestly, last one and a half years has been just pathetic, right? And everybody wants to just get a move on with their lives, get a move on with things that are happening. Let's first recap the changes, the updates, the things that have been happening over the last 1 week. First things first, flight ban between India and Canada was extended. As you all already know, I mean, it's not news anymore. It is extended until the 21st of July. International borders continued to be closed again until 21st of July. And this is for non-essential travel. So US, Canada borders, international borders, all of these remain closed for non-essential travel until the 21st of July. Another update which came was effective 5th of July, the quarantine exemption. Effective 5th of July, you no longer have to quarantine if you are fully vaccinated. Yes, there is a list of vaccines which are approved by the government of Canada. Only if you are vaccinated using those vaccines, or only if you have been administered those vaccines, will you be considered as fully vaccinated for the purpose of exemption of quarantine. It does not mean that you cannot travel to Canada. It just basically means that if you have been administered these vaccines, approved vaccines, then you no longer have to quarantine. You still need a quarantine plan just in case when you come to Canada and they do your COVID test, and if it turns out, God forbid, positive, then you obviously will need to quarantine. But if it turns out negative, off you go. You can continue with your life, and there is no quarantine requirement. So that was another update. Then another huge update which came was effective 21st of June. COPRs were allowed to travel. I mean, that was like blessings from the heavens, right? I mean, we have all been talking about it, rallying about it, posting so many social media, pleas and requesting whoever we could to sort of get this thing done. Eventually, thankfully, better sense prevailed. And it's not only about better sense. I think it also is a big understanding of how COVID is playing out, not only in Canada, but across the world. Whatever is this Delta variant, I am not a health practitioner or an expert, so I do not know what the repercussions of this is. But Delta variant is being considered as a threat. It is being considered. Everybody is monitoring it very, very carefully. I think there are a couple of countries which have come back with the lockdown again to hold back to this Delta variant. So Canada is equally concerned because recently there were a lot of cases which came up. India has just come out of that big suffering from Delta variant. So it continues to be a concern to the extent that there are already forecasts that there could be another wave of pandemic which might hit us. So people want to be more careful. So considering all of this, 21st June announcement that COPRs can now travel to Canada was like absolutely unbelievable. It was like, we couldn't have asked for something better because there were so many people whose lives had come to a standstill, and they just did not know what could be done, and it was just continuing. That was great news. Then from there on, biometrics, which were being held back because of, again, the lockdowns in India, those were reopened initially with the international students, and it soon followed and said that all visa categories can now get their biometrics done. Now, all visa categories obviously meant that visit visas would also be able to get their biometrics done. However, when we went onto the biometrics website, on the VFS website, trying to register for biometrics, unfortunately, visit visa applications could not be done at this point of time. So if you were a visit visa application, or if you know somebody who was able to get his biometrics appointment done, well, then share that news. But as of right now, as far as I am concerned, as whatever I know, I don't think biometrics appointment for visit visas at this point of time was happening. But I'm sure that would also get updated very quickly, because in visit visas also comes the super visa applications, which are extremely important. Not only that, a lot of people who are in Canada on a study permit, in Canada on different visas, on different TRVs, if they're back in Canada and they want to sort of process the visas to come to Canada, or you have family members who are in Canada, in back home, and they want to come to Canada, all of them will probably come on a visit visa, and they will need to get the biometrics sorted as well. So that obviously needs to reopen at some point of time. So as we are progressing, and as you can see, there are so many changes, updates, all of them quite promising, and they're all looking quite something to look forward to all the time. So yes, as I said, last week was unbelievably amazing. But what does this mean? Because with all these things happening, there are tons and tons of other questions, and today's session is all about taking care of those questions. Because to be very honest, how many of them are you going to answer on Facebook, right? So let's start with the first one. What do I have here? Okay, let's say this one. COPR extensions, because obviously when the announcement came for the 21st of June for COPR holders to travel, it was for valid COPR holders. Now, valid COPR holders basically means if you have a valid visa to come to Canada, if you do not come from a visa exempt country, if you have a valid COPR, the validity date is there and you can travel, then you can travel. But if your COPR has expired, the date has expired, the PR visa has expired, then what do you do? So the extensions of COPR was a big question mark. And this question has yet to be confirmed or answered by IRCC. So a lot of people have been saying, raise the web form, raise the web form. But IRCC has come back and said, don't raise the web form because it is just flooding their communication channels. Instead, they have said that they are aware which COPRs have expired. They are now going to progress towards reaching out to those applications or those applicants whose COPRs have expired, and then obviously they will reach out to them. If their medicals need to be redone, then they will ask you to redo your medicals. If they can automatically give you medical extensions, then they will give you a medical extension, and from there on continue providing your extensions for your COPR. The time for this particular segment, unfortunately, we don't know at this juncture, because we really don't know. I mean, there is no way to estimate or guesstimate how long it will take. But the relief from this is that it is happening. The relief from this is that the COPR holders can travel. So that in the following step, extensions will be given, and it would not be a big hindrance. So while it is not a definitive answer to the question as to when COPR extensions will be given to you, it basically is just to tell you that yes, it will be given. You don't specifically need to raise a web form at this point of time. You simply, it's a cliched statement, but unfortunately that's what it is. You will need to have a bit more patience and get on with it. Either which ways, if you belong to India, you can't travel within this month anyways, at least not on a direct route or direct flight. If you wanted to travel via an indirect route, well, that's a different situation altogether. But at this point of time, COPR extensions, they will start, or rather they already started happening. I know of a lot of applicants who have received re-medical requests, and then they will obviously proceed. Well, on that, another update was that upfront medicals had been suspended, especially in India and some other countries. Those have now been reinstated. So if you are looking to get your medicals upfront done, go ahead and do it. If you have already submitted your application with an explanation, but not with your upfront medicals, then in that case, just hold on, just wait. Let IRCC reach out to you. They will send you an IME form asking you to get your medicals done. Then go ahead and do it. Don't do if you already submitted your application, don't do it. If you haven't submitted your application, then go and get your upfront medicals done, because that will just only help you. So that was the COPR extension question. Next very important question, which a lot of you are wondering and thinking, where is that going to go, is the application processing, the PPRs. What's going to happen with the application processing and PPR? Again, no definitive answer to that question, because obviously the definitive answers would come if IRCC was to make an official announcement. Whatever I'm saying is primarily my personal opinion, based on speculations, based on lots of chatter that we hear on the background, on Twitter, on some other professionals who have a better knowledge of the whole process. So just that interaction gives you a bit more insight as to what's happening. Well, first things first is that until now, the applications were not being processed, were not being finalized, only for the big reason that even if they were going to give you the PPR, or even if they were going to stamp your passport, you couldn't travel to Canada, right? That was the big reason, big excuse. Now that reason and that excuse no longer exists, which basically means IRCC has no reason to hold your applications back. If at all, they have already been approved, they've already been finalized. So obviously what this would mean is that very soon from now on, you will start seeing the processing happening. You will start seeing PPRs flowing through. It will start with a trickle and then it will be a deluge. Okay. The indicator is that, and I'm talking with reference to India by and large, because that basically is a big market, and there are huge number of applicants and people waiting. And I will talk about other countries as well. But with India, it is because as of right now, there are still pockets of the country which are still restricting the movement of staff because of the COVID protocols. Canada is one of them. While Canada will always follow the local regulations, they will also follow their own protocols that have been instated by their public health authority. So PHAC, Public Health Authority of Canada, is what will direct the protocols. And I'm sure they have specific protocol for the staff members, and people who are working in the embassy in India, in the Canadian embassies in India. And obviously, considering how strict they are with the protocols here, same would obviously apply to the protocols there, which basically means there are less number of staff working in the embassy at any given point of time, keeping the protocol in mind. Because there are less number of staff, obviously that means that the processing cannot be at the same speed that it otherwise could. But, okay, as they say, there is always light at the end of the tunnel kind of a thing. But we are now at the end of the tunnel. We are not even seeing the light at the end of it. We can actually see the whole big bright shining light now. This is almost the end of the tunnel. So again, just have a little more patience because it is coming. As I said, there is no reason for IRCC to hold. If you have been watching my video, if you have been on my channel for long, then you already know I've been talking about this since last 6 months, that I expect this to happen towards the third quarter of this year. Third quarter would basically means from July, August to September, October. This probably is the time period that I would expect lots and lots more things to open up. But this is something which is bound to happen. End of July, we know for a fact that the ban of the flights, the India-Canada ban of the flights will end. We know that definitely the borders will reopen because there is so much of pressure on the government. There's so much of pressure from all sides, and the ban on the borders will reopen, whether it's with the US or elsewhere. They will. And as in how they start opening these gates, more and more things will happen. We are fast moving towards the normalcy that we once knew that existed. So we just need to have a bit more patience. I mean, a lot of things affect these decisions, and it's not only the COVID situation in Canada, it's also the COVID and pandemic situation elsewhere outside Canada, because whatever is happening outside Canada also makes a difference to their decisions in terms of border opening and reopening processes. So processing will happen. It will happen very quickly. It's just a matter of month or two max, but you will start seeing the trickle flowing through because people can travel now. Now, I was talking about India, but it also applies to other countries as well. Depending on the COVID situation elsewhere, they will start releasing more and more applications. They have no reason to hold back on the processing anymore. You will start seeing PPRs. It will happen with a trickle, and as I said, and then the floodgates will open, and then you will suddenly be seeing only PPRs, messages and mails and timelines everywhere. So you guys have really held back for such a long time. You've shown patience for such a long time. I guess it's just a little more time. It's just a little more ask from you. Just hold on to that. You guys will get through. Okay. And then, I mean, you can actually now start preparing, planning, and saying, okay, before the end of this year, I can be in Canada. That should be your realistic expectation. If you already know that your application was approved, you applied for GCMS notes, you've seen your GCMS notes, everything was done, everything was cleared. It basically means you will get there, hopefully before the end of the year. The next one, which people have been asking, passport submission and stamping. It is not related to the first part, that was application processing and PPR. Now, this was the second part of people who have received the PPRs, and it basically affects people in India because their passport stamping had been held back, had been stopped because after the Delta variant situation or the COVID situation, when the whole country went into a lockdown, almost everything came to a stop. So VFS suspended their two-way courier service, and you could no longer send your passports for stamping. So just like biometrics have restarted, VFS is just holding back a bit until Canadian embassy or the staff in the embassy have come back into the offices, are now operating, or at least will start accepting the passports for stamping. Because VFS cannot hold back the passports. They will have to transport it forward to the Canadian embassy. So they will just need to wait till the staff in the embassy say that, okay, we can now accept the passports, let them come in, things are better, things are normal. Since now we see the biometrics opening in India, I would expect passport submission and stamping also to happen within the next 1 to 2 weeks. It's normal. I mean, it's not even rocket science anymore. It's not something that I'm talking to you from I have insider information kind of a thing. No, it's just that it's logical, it's normal. It's all inching towards good things that we are all expecting. So passport stamping or the submission, your two-way couriers, if you want to call it, should resume, my opinion, my expectation, within the next, I would say 2 weeks, worst case within the month, probably within the month of July itself, worst case. But yes, it definitely will start. It will start happening. So you guys can, because with this passport stamping and submission is also connected the international students who are expected to come to Canada for their studies. Now, also connected is the India-Canada flight ban. Okay, so all these things are all interlinked and interconnected. All this basically means is that they know that the India-Canada flight ban will be lifted. So India-Canada flights will resume. That will happen. Students, the international students, need to come to Canada because we are expecting lots of colleges to start their in-person classes, or at least hybrid model of the classes. So the students need to get to Canada. How will they get to Canada if their passports and visas are not submitted and stamped? And obviously, the minute you submit your passport for stamping doesn't mean you will get it next day. That will be the process, at least 2 weeks, 3 weeks it might take. So if you're going to submit your passports in the month of July, you will probably get it towards the end of July, sometime towards the early August. You need it at that point of time because you need to come to Canada for your September intake, for your classes to start. If you have not got your vaccinations done, I mean, if you did not get your approved vaccines, which basically means you will have to undergo quarantine. So you have to consider that 14-day period for quarantine as well. Canada is aware. So you see, all of these things fall into place. They will have to reopen submission because they will have to, allow the international students to come to Canada. So based on all of this, I'm saying that it will definitely open up in the month of July. I hope that gives you the understanding of what I'm thinking. The next very big question, federal skilled worker program draws or all program draws. When are they going to start? I mean, the biggest question, which I think has been bothering every single candidate who has been waiting since 23rd of December 2020, when the last express entry draw happened, which was at the score of 468. I don't have an answer. I don't have a definitive answer, is what I'm saying. Again, the expectation is that with all things, slowly coming into place, Canada should resume the federal skill program draws as well. Last year, also around the month of July is when they had resumed the draws of federal skilled workers or all program draws after having continued with the PNP specific or CEC specific draws. So the month of July was when we saw the draws resuming. I would have a very high expectation of the draws resuming by the month of July. That also sits very well with my expectations that I have been screaming since last 6 months, that I expect things to reopen by the third quarter, or I expect the draws to start by the third quarter of this year. And it all, again, as I keep saying, it all ties in with lots of things. Prime Minister Trudeau had always said that they would look at phased reopening of Canada, or they would become, they would ease out better once the vaccination numbers in Canada go up. So they had a target that at least 75% of the Canadian citizens, residents, or people who are eligible to get a vaccination should at least get one dose. 75% should get one dose, and at least 20% should get at least 2 doses, so they can be considered fully vaccinated. Well, the good news is that they were already counting at 76% with one vaccine and nearly 26% with two doses or fully vaccinated, as we want to call it. Ontario is moving fast. They have already brought up their reopening plans to the 30th of June. Alberta is going all out and saying, okay, no more restrictions for anything. So they are reopening. Saskatchewan is going for reopening. And even it's being expected that even the mask restriction or the mask policy also will go away. So all of this ties in. What should hold them back from doing the all program draws? I know a lot of people have been saying this year there will be no FSW draws because they've already got their target. They've already achieved the number of ITAs. There is a big picture, all right? Because while they would have, or at some point in time, obviously in the coming, because they've already issued 88,000 ITAs this year that have been already issued. Same time last year, they had issued only 46,000 ITAs. So comparatively, this year, they've almost issued double the number of ITAs. This was obviously with the intention of giving a lot of advantage to people who are inside Canada. Because if you were inside Canada with this COVID restrictions, you couldn't travel. So you were going out of status. Plus, they also needed to meet their targets for immigration, which they did not meet last year. Last year, they did not even meet 50% of their target. So what was the best way of doing it? If people could not travel, if they could not allow people to travel, so then they had to look inside the house. They saw there was a huge community of people who were temporary residents. This was a very good opportunity for them to make them permanent residents or give them at least a pathway towards permanent resident. So the 13th February draw happened, 27,332 ITAs were issued. So they brought this PR to PR pathway where 90,000 slots were opened. Surprisingly, there are a good number of slots which are still open because the healthcare occupation slots, big numbers are open there. Essential occupation, I think more than 50% are open there. So still those positions need to be filled. So with all of this, they did manage to give a lot of benefit to people who are inside Canada. If you are inside Canada, you would get eCOPR. So you didn't have to send your passport for stamping. All you would get is an email which says, hey, voila, congratulations. You are now the permanent resident of Canada. This was great, right? Because it cut away so many administrative functions. I mean, sending your passport, visa stamping, flag polling, leaving the country, all those headaches were taken away, all right, in one shot, gone. So with all these things being said, federal skilled worker program draws are bound to happen. It's a definitive. Again, the date is something which is a speculation, but the fact that it should happen is a definitive, at least in my opinion. All right, it's not been said anywhere. At least that's the opinion. But let's quickly take a look at the in terms of the pool numbers. Okay, so this is obviously the express entry page on CIC website. The last draw, as we know, was again the CEC specific draw. No guessing there. 6,000 ITAs were issued. I mean, these were big number of ITAs that that IRCC was issued. This was huge, right? I mean, and they continue to issue these 6,000 ITAs. The lowest score drawn was 357. Okay, and as you can see, the tiebreaker also is not very far away. I mean, it's just February the 17th, which still basically means that there were still a lot of people who were in the score of 357 who possibly did not get an ITA. That is what the indication would be. But let's look at the score. I mean, let's look at the pool breakdown. Now, in spite of them issuing 6,000 ITAs regularly and PNP draws, 1,000 draws, 1,000 ITAs were issued for PNP as well. So nearly 7,000 invitations were issued. In spite of that, the pool numbers are still at 166. They have hovered in the same range between 164 to 166 all this while. That's a lot of profiles in the pool, as you can see. Yeah. The point that I'm trying to draw here is that 2,000 profiles are of people with a score of 501 and above. Now, these would be the people who either have some Canadian connection or Canadian work experience or have a job offer from an employer in Canada. All right. So these or obviously have a sibling, have French points, but that's a very big number. 2,000 people with a score of 501. They all cannot possibly be your CEC class for different reasons, because for them to be CEC class means at some point of time, they would have already been cleared in the past draws. So between the last draw and this draw, 2,000 people coming into the pool is a bit huge. Won't you say that? From there on, again, 491 to 500 is 1179 profiles. Now, 1179 profiles, again, is a big number, to be very honest with this score. But again, who are these people with 491? 491 will be people who will have Canadian work experience, who will have Canadian education, all right, some sort of Canadian connection, a sibling, PhD. Those profiles will come under 1179. Now, if you say 1179 and 2013, which is a total of about 3,000 profiles, if some of them have even been cleared by CEC, 481 and 490, I'm reading the wrong numbers. There is 3,449 profiles there. I mean, 471 to 480, you have 9,421 profiles. If you add 9,421, 3,449, 1179, 2013, that gives you a 9, 10, 13, 15, 16. 16,000 profiles are there above the score of 471. Okay, let's say that a lot of these profiles were Canadian experience class, though I don't expect a lot of them were Canadian experience class, but for the sake of argument or discussion, let's say a lot of these profiles were Canadian experience class. Let's say there were 4,000 profiles which were Canadian experience class. That still leaves us with nearly 12 to 13,000 profiles. So what do you think that the effect was going to be with all this high number of profiles that are there above this score? The point I'm trying to make is, with such a high score that we have, or rather such high number of profiles that we have in the express entry pool, whenever the draws do happen, and of course the draws will happen, at least that's what I think, the initial scores are going to be very high. The initial scores are going to be, I mean, at least in my expectation, depending, again, it all depends on how many ITAs are issued in the first draw. If they issue, say, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 ITAs as they have issued for CEC, you can expect the first draw to be in the range of very high 470, 478, 479, 480 possibly. But again, as I said, it all depends on how many ITAs they will issue. Will the scores drop? Yes, of course the scores will drop, because the number of profiles coming in are not the same as the number of profiles being invited. Because once they do the all program draw, then the CEC doesn't have the same advantage that they have been having for almost 1.5 years now, right? So now they are on the back foot again. So it's a time of the federal skilled worker candidates. For them, as much as the expectation is that the scores will drop slowly. It's not going to be a fast drop. It will be a very slow and a gradual drop. Expect 1 point, 2 point, 3 point drops with every single draw. Again, dependent on how many ITAs are issued. I don't expect to see 468 hitting again this year for sure. I don't expect it to happen. I don't expect 469 to happen. Even 470 looks like a very, very tall task in this condition, depending, because again, all of this, what I'm saying, is based on the fact of how many invitations will be issued and how often the draws are going to happen. If with my expectation, and the way I'm hoping, I hope July and probably August is when the federal skilled worker draws should start happening. That is what I would sort of look at expectation wise. And if it happens between July and August with the high draws of 480s or 470s high, it will only slowly trickle down, because at the end of the day, 88,000 invitations have already been issued. Okay, at the end of the day, there is a top level quota. Canada was looking to invite roughly 108,000 under the economic programs. Now, 108,000 does not mean they were looking to invite 108,000 applications, because in each application, there could be more than one applicant. You could be married, you could have children. The immigration target that Canada announces each year is for the number of people, not number of applications. But all YouTubers, all other people who talk about, oh, we will have 108,000 ITAs. No, we cannot have 108,000 ITAs, because one ITA, so each ITA does not mean that it will become a successful application. After you get an ITA, it can be declined. As we know, so many people decline ITAs all the time. ITAs can be rejected, right? So once you submit an application, incomplete applications are rejected. And then obviously applications are also refused. You did not submit proper application, PCC was not correct, work experience documents were suspect, you mentioned wrong information, proof of funds was not correct or not provided. For all different reasons that we know, the application can be refused. So the number of ITAs issued is not equal to the number of people who will immigrate to Canada. in one application, as I said, you could be married, you could have children. So one application could be, one ITA could mean more number of people. So all these people who say that 108 is the target of number of ITAs to be issued, it's absolutely wrong. It's no sense in understanding how the process works. So 88,000 ITAs have already been issued. I expect them to continue going on with them because there is no restriction on the number of ITAs. You see, IRCC has a much bigger picture in mind. Last year, they did not get their immigration quota. This year, they are looking to just manage their immigration quotas, but now they have to cover up for the shortfall. So they're not going to hold back just because they have really reached some sort of a target for the ITAs. I mean, my expectation for them to have issued the correct, the required number of ITAs was roughly 94 to 96,000. We've already reached 88,000. Give it another draw and we would have reached what I expected initially would be the number of ITAs they would issue this year. But they're not going to hold back. We are only reaching, we haven't even crossed the halfway mark for this year yet. They will definitely continue with this. So don't worry if you are a federal skilled worker. The invitations will come, the draws will happen. It's just a matter of a little bit more wait. Okay. Right. What is the big picture overall? What is the effect of all these things that is happening? What are we looking forward to? What is going to happen with this, all these doomsday theories that so many WhatsApp groups and other Facebook groups and some even YouTube channels are talking about, that Canada immigration is going to end, they cannot bring in so many people, etc., etc. I mean, big picture is Canada will always need immigrants. Why? Because our population, the Canadian population, is aging fast. The birth rate cannot keep up with the number of people who are growing old. We are a huge landmass. In case you didn't realize, we are still the second largest country in the world. The total population is less than 38 million or about 38 million, which is almost what Delhi or Mumbai, the population of those two cities are individually, right? So the numbers are there for you to see and understand. Canada needs immigrants. It will always need immigrants for a very, very, very long time to come. So immigration is not going anywhere. That's the first thing. Okay. And tying up with this is also my next subject, and that is the future of express entry. Now, with the big picture overall, last year, 2020, they did not get their targets. Only 140,000 people were were the ones who became new immigrants versus a quota of nearly 360,000. This year's quota is 401,000. Next year's quota is 420,000. Then you have 440,000. By October, you will obviously hear about the new immigration targets for the coming next 3 years. You will see how many more people will be coming to Canada. So with this large number of immigrants who have to come to Canada, who will be coming to Canada, immigration is not going anywhere. So the process of bringing in people is always going to be there. What is going to change, obviously, will be the immigration programs. Who comes in, how they come in, what criterias are being adopted. That I expect to change, because as and how times progress, Canada will adapt. Canada will adopt to different processes, different procedures, because at the end of the day, it's their country, right? They want to get the best of what they need. They need to identify what they can get and sort of create a good balance so that it's good for Canada, it's good for Canadian interest, Canadian people. So as much as people who are aspirants or who are intending to come to Canada, they find certain things fair, unfair, but it's not about fair, unfair. It's about Canada offering you the opportunity to come, Canada offering you the privilege to come. So in the big picture, immigration continues, nothing is stopping. I expect the number of immigration targets to continue. Canada continues to be one of the most humane countries in the world, country with a heart, okay? And they keep offering bigger, better programs. Like, for example, they recently increased the numbers of refugee quotas, right? They increased the number of applications they will accept under the refugee programs. They also made new programs for people who are in Hong Kong. Okay, they gave them different pathways. They made these new programs for people who were inside Canada, giving them an advantage, because where would they go with this whole thing? I mean, they have invested so much of money. They have invested so much of time. There's so much of effort given by the people in Canada. who were temporary residents. They were students, they were temporary workers. So you can see that there is a lot of soul, there is a lot of thought, there is a lot of care which goes into preparing and planning this whole process, and therefore Canada wins the heart every single time. So in big scheme of things, immigration will continue. Express entry at this point of time, the way we know it, will continue. The scores, yes, as I've already discussed with you just now, scores are probably going to go on the higher side of things. Next, I want to talk to you about is the PNP programs. Now, PNP programs, with each year, the quotas increase, right? Now, with the quotas increasing, obviously, more people will be able to come in. This year, we saw already Newfoundland and Labrador come up with a new kind of a program where for the first time, they invited people from outside, occupation specific. Ontario already does their draws where you don't need a job offer, occupation specific. British Columbia already has a program called BC Tech Pilot, occupation specific. Okay, Alberta chooses profiles from express entry pool, occupation specific. Saskatchewan obviously lets you create your expression of interest, but they conduct their draws, occupation specific. Nova Scotia has a labor market priorities stream, occupation specific. So I can go on and on and on and keep doing this occupation specific thing. But the point I'm trying to make is that the way things are moving and the way they will continue to move, it's your occupation code, it's your work experience, which is going to have the biggest difference in you being picked, in you being selected, and you being able to migrate or not. How do you figure out what these priorities are? Research is a big thing. Okay, if you go to the individual provinces' labor market streams, labor market requirements, not on their immigration website but on their provincial website, a lot of provinces do disclose their next 5 years labor market priorities. Okay, but at the end of the day, a lot of those decisions are also taken in consultation with the associations of different occupations that are there in their province. So for example, if the trucking industry comes and tells a province that, listen guys, we need more truck drivers because we are really struggling, it's not happening, the province will go back to their immigrant nominee program or their immigration department and say, listen guys, how much quotas do we have? We have this much of quota. Okay, can we do some program to invite only the truck drivers? Let's say, okay, let's figure this out. And next day you will hear a new announcement which says so-and-so province is now looking for 250 truck drivers to be able to apply under this and this stream, and this is the criteria, this is the program. Apply immediately. Similarly, Ontario has done for construction workers, they've done for health workers, they've done for truck drivers. Saskatchewan has done for truck drivers. Nova Scotia has done. This is something which is always going to continue happening. And this brings me to the next one, which is the future of express entry. Now, for people who have been watching updates with Canadian immigration, you were aware that the immigration minister did talk about changes that they intend to bring, with express entry. In this year's budget that was tabled, they did ask, or they did mention that they are looking to make some changes to the express entry system, which will then be drawn towards the labor market priorities, which basically means is that just the way certain provinces have gone and picked up occupation specific knock codes, in future you could expect that express entry may be adapted, may be adopted or redesigned in a manner where specific occupations will have a bit more advantage over others. Now, that is bound to happen, because with the way Canada is going, with so many hundreds and thousands of people that they're inviting, they may find an imbalance within the market where there is a certain number of occupations which are much more in numbers versus other occupations which are badly needed, but they're not able to get. This is quite obvious as far as when you draw comparisons with IT-related occupations versus the general, Knock C, Knock D kind of occupations. Most number of express entry application profiles that are getting approved are the knocks in IT, 2171, 72, 73, 74, 75. These are, and as far as the open data statistics is available on the IRCC website, these are the knock codes which have been processed successfully. I mean, the most number of profiles versus other knock codes. There are also a lot of accountants, there are also a lot of administrative assistants, but what about the other occupations? Okay, so it's quite normal, it's quite natural to expect that IRCC in future, in their Fed express entry, you can expect when the changes happen, the occupation-specific draws or occupation-specific advantage is something which we can expect will happen. This, my friends, is the update that I wanted to share with you. The future, well, you see, I've been making notes, right? Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, then please do. If you're not following us on Instagram, then I think you should, because we do a lot of stories. We do a lot of informative posts there first. And if you wish to take an appointment with me to discuss your application with me or any of our consultants, discuss your application, your processes, your queries one-on-one, then that is the link. You can also drop us an email for any queries that you might have on our services that we provide. Thank you so much for joining in. I will see you next time. And until then, stay safe and take care.